Okay, so recently did 10 overrated horror movies. Yeah, I had quite a good response from it. Obviously it's a bit of there'll be a divided sort of opinion on each of the films and whatnot. Some people will think they're perhaps not overrated, you know, and perhaps shouldn't have been in the list, but still that was the list I did anyway. Regardless, I could do another one of those anyway. Like, there is more films I could you know, place in the overrated section of things. Anyway, had a viewer request to do 10 underrated horror films, and I thought that was a really good idea. So here we go anyway. So here's a 10 top 10 countdown of underrated horror films. Again, it's what I think are underrated, so it's my opinion, you know, don't worry about that. Some people may think these are overrated, but I think some of them are criminally underrated. So let's run through them. So in 10 underrated horror movies, just my opinion, mind you, bear that in mind. Coming in at number 10, as you can see, is Ginger Snaps. It's a movie from the year 2000. It's about these sisters who basically, contract an werewolf virus and transform into werewolves. I think it's a really solid werewolf movie. I don't think it's as good as some of the classics like American Werewolf in London and The Howling, things like that, but it's definitely one of the better ones that should be up there. It does have its fans and its following, so I'm not saying it's like exactly criminally underrated, but I think it's just a little tad underrated. As like when it comes to werewolf movies, it's not always spoken about. It is by some people, but you know, in general, I think it's just a little bit underrated. I mean, it doesn't even have a Blu-ray release here in the UK. I mean, this is a Region A Scream Factory. Really nice addition though. It does have a couple of sequels. I thought the second film was pretty good, which focuses on that sister. But the third film was a period piece and didn't make a lot of sense, and I thought that was pretty terrible. But anyway, we're talking about the first film. Yeah, stellar movie. It's about these quirky sisters. They're a bit odd and a bit weird, sort of like social outcasts to some degree. And as you can see, they transform into werewolves that look like that. And there's some really good scenes in it as well. Not the best looking werewolves I've seen. I think like the werewolf from American Werewolf in London looks a lot better and things like that, but they still look pretty cool, and it's definitely worth your time if you've never watched Ginger Snaps. It's a stellar werewolf movie, and a little bit underrated, I'd say. Not the most underrated, perhaps that's why I put it at number 10, because I didn't feel like, I know it has its fans, but anyway, that's Ginger Snaps at 10. Again, another one which might have a bit of a divided opinion. Some people may think it's overrated or a bit not so underrated, but I decided to put John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness at number 9. I believe this movie's from 1993. I didn't look before 1995, so I was a couple of years off. So it stars Sam Neill, as you can see on the cover. This is a fantastic Scream Factory edition. It's another one that doesn't have a Blu-ray release in the UK. It could do with a 4K at some point. I think it's a fantastic film. It's Lovecraftian. You know, it's got the whole Lovecraftian vibe going on. It's about an author and his works sort of coming to life, and strange occurrences taking place in this small town where he goes to sort of hide out. But yeah, as far as John Carpenter movies goes, I'd say it's a little underrated, because you know, like things like the and rightfully so, like The Thing get a lot of recognition, and Halloween, and Christine's probably even recognised more than this one. Arguable which one's the better film, In the Mouth of Madness or Christine. I like them both, but you know, there's a couple of films that get Big Trouble in Little China gets more recognition than this one, The Fog, and rightfully so to some degree. I just feel like In the Mouth of Madness is a little bit underrated, not spoken about so much. Again, no, it has a following and it has its fans, so you know, take it with a pinch of salt that it's in the underrated list. But I just think it is, as far as John Carpenter movies go. I think it's just not spoken about as much as the others, and it deserves to be, really, because it's a really good one. It's a really smart film, and it, you know, it has its great moments and things. Okay, like so on to number 8, and we've got a bit of Full Moon in the list now. So this is a Full Moon feature, directed by Stuart Gordon, who did Reanimator and From Beyond. That is Castle Freak. It stars Jeffrey Combs as well from Reanimator and the Beyond. Yeah, Castle Freak's a cool one. Again, another one that has its fans, but I feel like it's a little bit underrated. I mean, it doesn't always spring to mind when I think of Stuart Gordon films as well, and it's a really good one. It's got good atmosphere. It's got a great location set at an old castle. It's got a great creature in it, you know, the kind of castle freak. Well, it's a human that's been neglected and left for years, and they've morphed into this sort of hideous, like, shell of a human being, if you will. But it's got, yeah, great moments in the film, pretty creepy, some good gore, things like that. It's a good showdown at the end as well. And yeah, like I say, when I think of Stuart Gordon movies, I always think of Reanimator and From Beyond, and even the episode of Masters of Horror, Dreams in the Witch House adaptation that he did. But Castle Freak, I always forget about it. So I feel like Castle Freak's a little bit underrated. That's my number 8. Okay, so on to number 7, and I've selected Unfriended. Now, a lot of people are going to probably come to me and say, well, it's just garbage anyway. A lot of people think this is absolute rubbish. I kind of disagree. Well, I do disagree because I actually quite like the film. I admit it's a bit... perhaps a little bit reliant on the whole like technology thing, but that's the basis of the film. You know, it's shot like you're watching somebody's Facebook page, pretty much, like, you know, their video chat. That's how it plays out. It's like all on screen. It's an on-screen recording off of somebody's Facebook, and you're watching these characters mix it up, and they're talking about this girl who's committed suicide, I think it was, and yeah, it all goes down and strange things happen when shit hits the fan towards the end of the film. I think it's a pretty good one. I quite enjoyed the concept. I think there's a few films that have tried to do this concept, you know, this whole on-screen recording thing, and it hasn't worked. A couple that it has worked with is this one, and I can't remember what it's called. I think it was called Host. Yeah, that Shudder did during lockdown. Yeah, during the COVID sort of times, they did Host, and I think that worked. That was a really creepy one as well, pretty good movie. But I feel like Unfriended's a little bit underrated because it gets a lot of hate, but I actually think it's quite a compelling little movie, actually, quite an interesting one. And it's one of the first that did this style, as far as I know. I could be a little off on that, but yeah, Unfriended at number 7. So coming in at number 6 is a slasher. Again, another one that has its fans and stuff. I'm one of them. I think the film's fantastic, and I think when it comes to slashers, it isn't spoken about enough. It's spoken about a bit. It does come up with the more sort of people who are into the sort of like, you know, like more, you know, more in-depth horror fans who have like sort of like dived into the genre, have obviously seen it and probably own it. But when it comes to casuals and slashers, obviously they talk about stuff like Halloween, etc., the Friday the 13th series, Nightmare on Elm Street, things like that, Scream. But I think a fantastic one is Madman. So I've put Madman in at number 6. I think it's underrated. It tells the story of Madman Mars, this guy who comes back to take care of the campers. They sort of resurrect him by singing his song and talking about him during a campfire. This camp counselor tells the story of Madman Mars, and he comes and takes care of that. He's attacking people, you know, like killing them off, and it's set in the woods at a summer camp at night time, and it's got a really good atmosphere and pathos to it. And the main character, the antagonist, Madman Mars, is just a fantastic killer, and I'm surprised it's never had a sequel. I assume with it being a bit lower key in the slasher sort of genre, it's not regarded as being up there in the higher echelon and stuff like that. It's a bit more of a lower tier one it's classed as, but I think it's totally fantastic, and I think it's on par perhaps like with some of the other ones. Not stuff like Halloween, of course, and Nightmare on Elm Street, but you could say it's a lot better than some of the Friday the 13th sequels, that's for sure. As much as I love them films, like I could still say this is probably a better one, and that's Madman at number 6. Sorry, I made a mistake on Madman. I said it was number 5. It's actually number 6 in the countdown, so sorry about that. Coming in at number 5 is a film called Storm Warning. So I don't know if many of you have heard of Storm Warning, but it's not bad. It's pretty good, and it's slightly underrated. It's a very good sort of how do I describe it? Very violent, sort of like you know, kind of like high tension horror movie where this couple get lost near a strange sort of island area. Excuse my fuzziness with it because I've not seen it for a long time. There's a look at the back. So despite local storm warnings, the brewers set out for an afternoon boating on Westernport Bay and become lost in a thick mangrove swamp at the bay's northern end. So yeah, they basically get lost in a swamp. They encounter this strange family who says they're trying to help them, and then things go from there when the family try to hold them captive, and the husband ends up being held captive in the barn, I think it is, and they start doing they try to torture them, and a fight breaks out. It's a fight for survival towards the end with the couple trying to get away. And yeah, it's quite a violent one. I wouldn't describe it as a slasher as such. It's just a violent, just an extremely violent horror movie. That's Storm Warning at number 5. Go check it out if you haven't, because it's not bad. I need to rewatch it because I've not seen it for years, but it's not spoken about too much. And I remember it being a cheap pickup for me. I got it at a really low price, and I thought it was rather good for what I paid for it. So yeah, Storm Warning. So number 4, and I want to kind of breeze through a little bit more now, but number 4 is Burial Ground. So 1980 zombie flick, Italian. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. Slightly underrated. I know, again, it has its following and its fans, but this release was also awesome, this 4K release from 88 Films, and I love the movie. I think it's such a great zombie film. It's not better than things like Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, you know, those films and whatnot. It's not better than Return of the Living Dead either, really, subjectively speaking, but I think it's fantastic, and I think it's definitely nearly up there. I mean, it's a lot of fun. It's very trashy, and it's kind of stupid as well. You know, it has some things that are rather jarring and quite comical about the film, but still, it's just a great time. It's so much fun. You can't deny Burial Ground, but that's my number 4 pick. Okay, so coming in at number 3 is one that doesn't have a UK Blu-ray release. I have the DVD. I know Umbrella Entertainment have just released it on Blu-ray in Australia, which I could pick up at some point. I could import that, but I've got The Tunnel at number 3. I don't know if any of you guys have seen it. Let me know in the comments what you think of The Tunnel. I thought it was a great found footage film. It's got a lot of atmosphere, you know, it's dark, it's intriguing. These people venture into the tunnel, you know, and all hell breaks loose. And it's got a good climax of the movie where you see some strange shit, basically. Some strange things go down. Yeah, it's one that warrants a rewatch from me. I haven't watched it for a while, but it's very, very good. And I'd like a better edition of it than this DVD. I mean, this is a nice DVD with a slip and whatnot, but I'd love to get this on Blu-ray. There's a tagline, makes Paranormal Activity look like the teacup ride at Disneyland. I don't know about that, but it's really good. Anyway, that's The Tunnel at 3. Okay, so down to the sort of nitty gritty now. Coming in at number 2 is The Odd Creep. So Creep, which I know was quite a big one on Netflix a few years ago, and they did a sequel as well, Creep 2. But I feel it's a bit underrated, because some people say it's a load of rubbish. I've heard a lot of people lay into this film, and I think it's rather good. It's a great fan footage film. The main character, you know, the guy who's been filmed for his documentary that he hires somebody to make for him, is just crazy and kooky. He's a joy to watch sometimes. He's that much fun, you know. But yeah, that's coming in at number 2 when he puts on the werewolf mask as well and scares the guy who's filming and freaks him out. That's a lot of fun. There's more fun bits in the film as well when he starts stalking him. Things take a crazy turn later on in the film. It starts off quite subtly and builds and builds. You know, it's got good atmosphere. It's a good fan footage film, one of the better ones out there, I'd say. Yeah, that's Creep at number 2. So this might still be available on Netflix, I'm not sure, but I had to pick up a DVD copy just so I've got it in case it went off Netflix, because I don't know if it's one of their originals. Might just be one that they had on for a while. And Creep 2 is worth checking out as well. That was really good and different as well. You know, they kind of put a different spin on things. Yeah, it's Creep at number 2. Okay, so on to the number 1. Do remember with this list, it is just my opinion. I possibly will do a part 2 to this. Some more underrated movies, because it is quite a simple one to do. You can pick out a lot of underrated films. Anyway, I've gone for one directed by Dario Argento, which may surprise you, but I think Trauma is a bit underrated. I know it could, because basically it's panned. A lot of people don't like it. I think the film's mediocre. I don't think it's as bad as people say it is. I think it's an okay sort of giallo. I know it's one of the films he made in America, I think. It was the first one he did over there, possibly. It's got Brad Dourif in there as well, and his daughter Asia Argento, and I think it's pretty good. It's got a cool killer who has a cool weapon to kill people, very unique. The twist isn't bad. The film's not amazing, don't get me wrong, it does get bogged down in parts and it can be a little bit boring and stuff, but I think it's a bit underrated as an Argento film. You know, all these other films are such classics like Suspiria and Inferno, Tenebrae, Phenomena. I'd say Opera's a little bit underrated as well. I could have perhaps done that as number 1, but I decided to go with Trauma anyway, because I don't think it's as bad as people say. It's not a great film by any means, but it's also a middle of the road Argento film, it's not too bad, and I'll take that. You know, from a master like Argento, if he does a middle of the road film, I'm going to take that. I'm going to, you know, that's a good sell for me, and I think it's all right. Like, it's mediocre at best, but it's definitely a bit underrated, and it gets a lot of slack as well, and it probably doesn't deserve it, as it's one of his better films from the 90s onwards, you know, the latest stint in his career, which did sort of take a downward spiral, going to a downward spiral to some degree, with terrible films that he did like Dracula 3D. However, this one's pretty good. Anyway, that's my top 10. Hope you enjoyed that. You know, send me some comments and whatnot. We can have a little chat about it. Not sure what you're going to think of the number one. Some people are going to think I'm talking nonsense. That's fair enough. Like, I just think Trauma's a little bit underrated, and I decided to put it as number one. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.